Welcome to another episode of Africa Sports Special. Now, last week we had such a fantastic time where we were now trying to debunk football, especially looking at FIFA, CAF, what is happening in Kenya, and being able to link all of them together so that we can see how the money, which is the business, we can see how politics, and we can see how global power influences the decisions that are made and how they impact us in Kenya. Now, I want to take a different direction for this particular one, but I also want to link it into the same. Now, when we talk about sports, and I remember when I touched on sports the last time, I specifically said sports is soft power. And soft power is where you're able to influence decisions and influence policies that affect millions of people without having to cause a war, cause a racket, go hard on people. No, soft power is able to fully influence and is more majestic, and it's more powerful actually than hard power, because people don't realize that they're being influenced because of how soft it is. Now, yesterday, with one of my colleagues, we were discussing and admiring how India, the government of India, has successfully managed to bring back some of their indigenous games. So, Hello India, together with the National Games of India, have been able to revive indigenous games that have been there have even existed for centuries, and now it's become major competitions in India. And in admiration, we were like, what about Africa as a continent? Because you see, our 54 nations, each country has indigenous games that come from there, and we know that. And one thing we know when it comes to indigenous games is they can't be stolen by any other continent, because they are predominantly yours. These are games that belong to you. The names are yours. So even if some have been taken and changed into names and created something different, we still have many more games that we are able to work with. And during that time, I came across something called the African Games, also known as the All African Games. This is by the United Nations. Now, it was initially introduced in 1965, took place in Brazzaville, that's Congo, and the most recent one was in 2023-24, which happened to be in Ghana. Now, as much as they have just the normal games as basketball, judo, you can see like they have chess, swimming, etc. First of all, my initial question was, why is this not popularized, right? This is a competition that happens specifically on the African continent, that touches all 54 countries. Yet it's not as popular as it's supposed to be. And I guess I can see why, because I remember looking at a lot of people not even realizing that CHAN is an actual competition that happens under CAF. And everyone was like, it's not even that much of a major, yet it is actually a major competition. So I see why the African Games is not getting the same publicity, but are we able to change that? But also, while we are talking about the All African Games, are we able to actually introduce some indigenous games like Dombe, which I understand is a form of martial arts that comes from West Africa, or Nyama 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 that comes from Kenya, or Kati, or Mbe Mbe from South Africa. I want to see us being able to revive some of these games. One thing you understand about soft power is that introducing some of these indigenous games to Africa, to the Africa Games, then is able to influence a whole group of people to not only learn about their history, where this game started, how it was introduced, having an entire continent learning to play these games, but at the same time, you're able to influence the conversation in regards to making sure that Africa is a priority specifically for Africa. Now, for me, I always believe when I'm having a conversation, and especially whether it's coming into sports or sports decisions or sports politics, my first main focus is the continent of Africa, and Africa being able to gain back its control. And that happens when we start taking our sports seriously. I always say Africa has an over 1.3 billion population. we do not need the rest of the world. We are able to control, and we are able to publicize, and we are able to market some of and most of our indigenous games and even competitions on the continent. We just need to be able to invest in our media to make sure these games are seen globally. We need to be able to create platforms where specifically owned by us, where we are able to have conversations about what it means to have African games, African competitions, which games are this, because so long as we are always having conversations on platforms that not belong to us, we are easily able to be censored. We are easily able to be shadow banned. We are easily able to, our accounts to be deleted. But something that belongs to Africa, and we are discussing Africa, then we can get the priority of what we require. African conversations need to be done by Africans. It needs to be pushed by us Africans. It needs to capture us as a people on platforms created by us as a people. And so when I'm talking about the African Games, the next one should be either in 2027. I would love to be able to see in the introduction of indigenous games, like as much as the rest are there, cool, we know them, I would love to have a conversation about how do we introduce, how do we market, how do we push indigenous games so that now they become popular on the continent. I want to be able to see people playing Shake, not only a game that I grew up playing here in Kenya, but I want to see people to be being able to play it on the African continent. I do not care about everybody else. It's just on the African. It doesn't even have to go to World Cup. It's okay. Africa can have its own version of World Cup for its indigenous games. That is okay with me. But I want us be able to start taking back our control, our conversations, our policies when it comes to sports, and be able to make decisions on our own. This way, even if global decisions are made, they do not affect us at all. That's all I had for today. I hope everybody's having a lovely Sunday, and I hope we can continue having this conversation. Have a good one.